Stretching languidly, Aditya was roused from a deep, peaceful slumber. The first rays of morning light filtered through the room, caressing his skin with warmth. Waking up at dawn had become an ingrained part of his routine, but every day it felt like a blessing rather than an obligation. His eyes fell upon the figure beside him, Julia. His fiancée. His future wife. Her serene, sleeping face was the first sight he cherished each day. As he watched her sleep, a tender smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Their bodies were entwined, their naked skin touching, intimately familiar with each other. His arm was draped around her slender waist, pulling her closer, so that she was flush against his chest, enveloped in the warmth of his body. Their activities of the night before had been passionate and prolonged, stretching into the wee hours of the night until exhaustion claimed Julia. After they had cleaned up, they had slipped under the covers, bodies pressed close, hearts beating in sync. An all-consuming desire welled up within him to stay just like this, in this cocoon of warmth and love, indefinitely. He yearned to keep his responsibilities at bay, if only for a little while longer. To dwell in this moment of tranquility, free from the burdens of ruling the vast Eastern Empire. The mental fatigue that had accumulated over the past few months made this simple moment of serenity seem even more precious. Aditya, the emperor, the ruler of the vast Eastern Empire, yearned to lose himself in the quiet, everyday moments of domestic bliss. As he held Julia close, basking in the comfort of their shared warmth, he made a silent wish. A wish to linger in this moment, and for many more such moments in the future, unburdened and undisturbed. A sigh of regret escaped Aditya's lips, a wistful acknowledgement of the reality that he couldn't delay his responsibilities any further. Leaning in, he placed a gentle kiss on Julia's rosy cheek before he gently extricated himself from their comfortable entwining. His bare feet padded softly across the room, towards the ensuite bathroom. The sound of running water filled the space as he freshened up, his reflections and aspirations for the day mingling with the tranquil morning atmosphere. When he emerged, dressed in a simple, loose outfit better suited for a commoner rather than an emperor, he found Julia awake, her eyes sparkling with the freshness of the new day. The clothes he chose were a stark contrast to his usual regal attire, offering him a sense of ease and mobility, a small relief from the constant weight of his imperial identity. "Good morning," she greeted, her voice as sweet as the melodious chirping of birds outside their window. "Good morning, Julia," he responded, his voice soft yet firm, resonating with the warmth of their shared intimacy. He leaned in to capture her lips in a gentle kiss, a sweet promise to carry him through the day. "I'm heading to the training ground for a bit of exercise. I'll meet you at the dining table," he declared, a hint of reluctant detachment in his voice. His gaze lingered on her for a moment longer before he took his leave, the echoes of their shared warmth accompanying him. Scene change under Aditya, with a flicker of space magic, teleported himself to the exclusive training ground nestled behind the grandeur of the Dragon Palace. This extensive training zone, spreading across a sprawling 1,000-meter radius, was as large as the palace itself. The training ground wasn't just vast, it was also fortified to an extent that rivaled the palace's defenses. A 4-star rune dome, a solid wall of magical power, towered around the training field, the first line of defense against any trespasser. Beyond this, lay the 4-star rune traps, an invisible network of explosive and poisonous traps, lurking beneath the surface, ready to catch any unwelcome visitor off guard. Further in, the 4-star rune maze unfurled, a daunting labyrinth of illusions capable of trapping an intruder in a mind-bending maze with no visible exit. It was a well-thought-out defensive system that demonstrated Aditya's meticulous nature. Runes, in essence, were the key to manipulating magic. Each rune held a specific magical property, and by arranging these runes in particular patterns and sequences, one could create different kinds of magical effects. This art was an intricate part of the magical world, and mastering it required a deep understanding of magic and its underlying principles. As Aditya stepped into the expansive expanse of the training ground, his gaze instantly fell upon Alicia, his second betrothed, who was already absorbed in her morning meditation. Nestled amid the tranquility of the verdant surroundings, she was a vision of ethereal beauty and serene calm. At his approach, Alicia's eyes fluttered open, breaking her tranquil communion with the energy of the universe. "Good morning," Aditya returned the greeting, his eyes reflecting the affectionate spark lighting up his face. Their morning encounters had become a cherished routine over the past month. As a princess of the prestigious ethereal empire, it was a given that Alicia should have been well versed in the art of combat. Aditya cherished these training sessions with Alicia, ready to spar. Aditya suggested, his eyes gleaming with a playful glint. "Remember, we're sticking to our usual rules. You can use your passive skills for a temporary boost in stats, but no spells. As for me, I'll be fighting you in my base form, with no use of skills." Having dedicated herself to intense cultivation over the past couple of months, Alicia had made significant strides in her power. "Let's do this," Alicia affirmed, a determined glint in her eyes. With a swift motion, they both vanished from their spots, only to reappear in the center of the training ground. Her long, strong legs whipped through the air, aimed squarely at Aditya. The sight was both daunting and captivating, her flowing black hair trailing behind her body arched in a perfect curve, and her fierce eyes focused unwaveringly on him. With a composed demeanor, Aditya easily deflected Alicia's powerful kick with his arm, sending out another miniature shockwave upon contact. Instead of blocking her strike, Aditya deftly sidestepped to her right, evading her attack and swiftly maneuvering behind her. Before she could react, she felt his solid, muscular arms enveloping her slender waist in a firm yet gentle grip. He gently rested his face on her left shoulder, his warm breath sending a shiver down her spine as he whispered in her ear, "You've got more in you." A delicate blush rose to Alicia's cheeks as his words and proximity momentarily flustered her. Aditya was a seasoned warrior, a seasoned killer. His journey had seen him engaging in countless battles, taking down tens of millions of enemies. Alicia continued her energetic attempts to land a blow on Aditya, her every movement causing the prominent curves of her body to dance along with her. Aditya, enjoying the playful skirmish, kept effortlessly sidestepping her attacks, all the while appreciating the sight of her vitality. After a while, he decided to shift the rhythm of their match. When they broke apart, Alicia was visibly blushing, her cheeks a delicate hue of pink. She gently pushed him away, stepping back to create a distance between them. "You cheeky rogue, quit teasing me." Aditya merely laughed at her flustered reaction, his eyes sparkling with mirth. Their playful spar continued, occasionally punctuated with more surprise embraces or tender kisses from Aditya. "Really, thank you very much to all those who..." After concluding his fun-filled sparring session with Alicia and partaking in some good-natured teasing, Aditya decided it was time to freshen up. He returned to the comfort of his room and indulged in a refreshing bath, letting the cool water cleanse his body and rejuvenate his spirit. Once he was done, he made his way to the dining area of the palace, the delightful aroma of a hearty breakfast guiding him. As he stepped in, his eyes fell upon two familiar faces seated at the dining table, Leo and Clara, his adopted younger siblings. "Good morning, you two," Aditya greeted with a warm smile. "Good morning, big brother." Aditya then turned his attention to Leo, his gaze thoughtful as he studied the young lad. He could sense the remarkable changes in Leo's aura, a clear sign of his cultivation progress. "Leo, you've grown stronger again, haven't you?" Leo was a diligent and committed cultivator, astonishing everyone with his rapid growth despite his tender age. "Big brother, I appreciate your compliment." Leo was undeniably a prodigy in the realm of cultivation. One such advantage was the special 4-star cultivation pills gifted by Julia, Aditya's first fiancée. These pills worked wonders in enhancing Leo's cultivation speed. Moreover, being of Dragonian lineage naturally endowed Leo with a higher cultivation speed compared to others. Yet another major factor that significantly contributed to Leo's swift cultivation progress was the unique atmosphere of the Dragon Palace itself. "Leo, it's truly astounding to see the transformation you've undergone. Only around 9 months ago, you were a frail and delicate boy. But now, looking at you, I can't help but be filled with pride for the strong, young man you've blossomed into," Aditya praised warmly, his eyes reflecting his genuine admiration. "You've achieved something that none of your peers have been able to do. I don't think there's ever been a case of someone your age reaching the beginner 4th order. Even those widely acclaimed as geniuses haven't been able to replicate your feat. In fact, your cultivation surpasses even mine." Hearing Aditya's words, a radiant smile spread across Leo's face. As they sat there, Aditya seemed to ponder for a moment before turning to Leo with a sincere look in his eyes. "Leo, I hope you won't find this question too sudden, but I've been wanting to ask you something," he began, his tone indicating the seriousness of his question. "I know you're young and there's still plenty of time for you to figure things out. However, I am curious to know if you have any future aspirations. Is there something specific you're aiming for, a path you wish to follow?" Caught slightly off guard by Aditya's question, Leo was momentarily taken aback before quickly regaining his composure. "Big brother," he began, his voice steady and filled with determination, "I do have a certain ambition I wish to fulfill." Intrigued, Aditya urged him on with an encouraging smile. "Please, feel free to share, Leo," he said, genuinely interested in his little brother's aspirations. Gathering his courage, Leo spoke, "I wish to become a general. My goal is to lead the Dragonians into the battlefield." He finished with a sense of trepidation, apprehensive about whether he'd crossed a line. The Dragonians were elite soldiers, the pinnacle of military strength in the Eastern Empire. Even though their numbers only totaled around 25,000, their collective might was far beyond the millions of other regular and elite troops the Empire boasted. However, instead of meeting a frown or reprimand, Leo found Aditya looking at him, not in disappointment or disbelief, but in surprise. His big brother finally spoke, carefully weighing his words. "Are you certain, Leo? It's not that I question your ability to lead the Dragonians into battle. Rather, the role you desire is fraught with perils and unpredictability." Aditya's smile broadened as he addressed his little brother, his voice filled with warmth and affection. "You see, Leo, I had originally envisioned you taking control of our territories in the southern region, governing as you see fit. I imagined you becoming a duke of this great empire. However, it seems that such a life doesn't appeal to you, does it?" Leo responded with an emphatic nod, his resolve unshaken. "I aspire to become a general, big brother," he confessed, his voice ringing with determination. "I want to hold the title of the 8th general of the empire." At these words, Aditya's eyes widened slightly, taken aback by the unwavering conviction and sheer grit reflected in Leo's bright blue gaze. A ripple of surprise swept across Aditya's face as he commended his young brother. "Leo, your ambition has genuinely taken me by surprise. I have no qualms about your becoming the 8th general of this empire. However, there's a condition you must meet before you can assume this role. You must reach the age of 18. Previous index next. Once everyone had their fill of the sumptuous breakfast, it was time for them to start their respective days. Aditya, with a light pat on Leo and Clara's heads, signaled his departure. Spencer too rose from his chair, smoothing his clothes as he prepared to leave. Both of them had responsibilities waiting for them. Governing an empire was a job that demanded their utmost attention and time. Meanwhile, Leo and Clara, with the innocence of youth still twinkling in their eyes, packed up their school bags. Despite their royal status, they attended school like any other children of their age, keen to learn and explore the world around them. They said their farewells and set off for school, a day of learning and adventures waiting for them. Suddenly, Julia's voice echoed through the dining hall, grabbing everyone's attention. Julia, who was known for her extraordinary expertise in the alchemy and her position as Aditya's first fiancée, had called for everyone's attention. "Everyone, gather in the lab," she announced in a voice that carried an intriguing mix of seriousness and excitement. "We are going to have a meeting." The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, and those who were left in the dining room promptly made their way towards the lab, eager to find out what the upcoming meeting held in store for them. Scene change __________. Amber, the formidable 5th General and Captain of the 5th Division, was among those called to the meeting. A slight frown creased her forehead as she looked around the room, her sharp eyes meeting those of her fellow attendees. "Why have I been summoned here?" she asked, the question hanging in the air, her normally unflappable demeanor slightly disturbed by the unusual summons. The women in the room shared puzzled glances, a ripple of confusion passing among them. Julia, who seemed to have taken the reins of the meeting, finally broke the silence. "Well, Amber, it's because you are not just a fellow general and captain, but also one of my closest friends," she explained gently, her voice firm yet soothing. "As women, we believe your perspective would be invaluable in our planning." This, however, only prompted a further question from another attendee. Ria, the third fiancée of Aditya, looked at Julia with curiosity glinting in her eyes. "What exactly are we planning here?" she queried, her fingers idly playing with a strand of her hair, her attention fully focused on the matter at hand. The room fell silent for a moment before Watson, Aditya's dependable butler, cleared his throat and decided to provide the answer. "Actually, ladies, we are here to discuss His Majesty's birthday," he stated, his voice carrying an air of formal authority. The revelation was met with wide-eyed surprise from the women, their expressions reflecting a mix of shock and intrigue. Ria, along with the others, suddenly realized they were treading uncharted territory. "Now that I think about it, I don't know when Aditya's birthday is," she mused internally, her brows furrowing in thought. The rest of the women in the room also looked rather intrigued, their curious gazes shifting between each other as they pondered over the unknown details of their beloved special day. The revelation of Aditya's birthday coming from Julia brought about a wave of surprise amongst the gathered ladies. She stated matter-of-factly, "Aditya's birthday is on the first day of the new year." The announcement hung in the air like a tantalizing secret just revealed, causing a moment of startled silence as they digested the information. Shortly after this revelation, Watson, ever the professional, took his cue to depart. He offered a respectful bow to the assembly, saying, "If you ladies will excuse me, I shall take my leave." His tone was measured, courteous and carried a note of finality. He knew that these were waters best navigated by those who intimately knew Aditya on a personal level, and thus he retreated, leaving the ladies to their discussion. Once the butler had exited, leaving the women alone in the room, Alicia, Aditya's second fiancée, turned her gaze towards the group. There was a certain determination in her eyes as she addressed them, her voice carrying an underlying current of urgency. "We now have a deadline to work with. Roughly 8 days. That's the time we have to plan something truly special for Aditya," she proclaimed. Her words brought into sharp focus the task that lay before them, creating a memorable birthday celebration for the man they all held dear. Over the past couple of months, a significant shift had occurred in the ranks of Aditya's fiancés, particularly in terms of their cultivation progression. Julia, the alchemy genius, stood out in particular. In a short span of 2 months, she had managed to climb the steep and rigorous path of cultivation, finally settling at the peak of the third order. Her accomplishment was indeed remarkable. However, it should be noted that Julia could have ascended even further if she had dedicated more time solely to her cultivation practice. Being the goddess of alchemy that she was, her heart and soul were deeply embedded in her research. Her lab, filled with test tubes and brewing concoctions, was her sanctuary, the place where she spent the majority of her time. Her primary focus these days was to uncover a cure for her sister Lara, who was Aditya's 4th fiancée. This noble endeavor consumed much of her energy and time. On the other hand, there was Ria, Aditya's 3rd fiancée. Her progress was no less impressive. Over the same period, she had ascended to the mid-5th order, a testament to her relentless dedication and determination. Both Julia and Alicia, along with Ria, had made astounding leaps in their cultivation journeys over the past 2 months. "All right, ladies," Alicia began, her voice brimming with playful mischief as she surveyed the women seated around her. A twinkle of amusement lit her eyes as she turned her attention towards Ria, who was perched across from her, looking every bit the picture of poise. "Given how much Aditya loves simplicity, I'm certain he'd appreciate a small, intimate celebration, don't you think? However, since our dear Ria here is part of the planning committee, I do hope it doesn't end up as a grand spectacle that could rival the coronation of an emperor, knowing her propensity for all things ostentatious." Ria's eyebrow arched slightly at Alicia's subtly loaded words. Her right eye twitched ever so slightly, a telltale sign of her barely concealed annoyance. But before she could formulate a fitting retort to Alicia's barb, Julia smoothly intercepted the brewing altercation. "This isn't the right time or place for both of you to ignite another one of your infamous catfights. Can we, for once, focus on the matter at hand? We are here to discuss Aditya's birthday, not engage in a verbal sparring match." Julia's voice was firm, her gaze steely as she admonished the 2 women. Alicia, meanwhile, simply responded with a victorious smirk, visibly relishing the moment. Seeing that smug expression on Alicia's face was like a dash of salt on Ria's wounded ego, causing her eye to twitch once more. The dynamic of their relationship was quite evident, a mix of playful rivalry and mutual respect, making their interactions all the more entertaining. Watching the interaction between Aditya's fiancés unfold, the other girls in the room processed the scene with varying thoughts swirling in their minds. Arya, in particular, was left somewhat dumbstruck by the unique dynamic among the women. There wasn't a trace of animosity or resentment that one might expect in such a complex relationship, quite the contrary, in fact. If anything, Aditya's 4 fiancés displayed an exceptional level of kindness and mutual respect towards one another. They cared for each other and treated one another as if they were real sisters, bound by ties of love and friendship. However, there were times when the harmony gave way to a more playful banter. On such occasions, Alicia would tease Ria, provocatively throwing out subtle jibes. At times, Ria would return the favor, but more often than not, she found herself on the losing end of their verbal jests. Each of Aditya's fiancées was truly one of a kind, with a distinct personality that added to the dynamic of the group. Julia was the epitome of the nurturing big sister and was, for all intents and purposes, the leader of the group. Everyone respected and admired her. Lara, on the other hand, was the quiet one. She was undeniably the shyest among them, but her honesty and transparent expression of feelings added an innocent charm to her persona. Then there was Alicia, undoubtedly the most astute one in the group. She was always at the ready to taunt Ria, seemingly always winning their playful exchanges. And finally, there was Ria. Always calm, kind, and caring, yet Alicia somehow had a knack for provoking her. She would seize any opportunity to retaliate, but her attempts to taunt Alicia back often fell short. This unique dynamic among them brought a colorful and lively atmosphere to their interactions. Sylvie was Alicia's best friend. But in spite of that close relationship, she never seemed to take sides whenever Alicia and Ria locked horns. Instead, she seemed to derive a certain level of amusement from these friendly tussles. Crack. Arya turned to look at Sylvie, and her eyes widened in surprise. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Sylvie sat there munching on popcorn, her eyes sparkling with amusement as she watched Alicia and Ria's exchange with unabashed delight. Arya couldn't help but wonder, when on earth did she manage to bring popcorn into this meeting? Amidst all the drama, there was Amber. She stood there, equally taken aback by the unfolding spectacle. Normally she had a stern, serious demeanor, but her best friend, Julia, had once encouraged her to let loose a bit more. Observing the light-hearted banter, she could see what Julia meant. It was intriguing how everyone seemed to derive joy from the playful interactions. Perhaps, she mused, there was something to be learned from this unique dynamic after all. Really, thank you very much to all those who send support with valuable golden. Exhaling deeply, Spencer scanned the expansive room that served as his office. This space, which once bustled with activity, now sat eerily empty and silent. Initially, Spencer was assigned 3 assistants to help lighten his workload. Their help ensured that he had ample time for his beloved Arya, his future wife. However, ever since Aditya, the ruler of the Eastern Empire, returned from his brief visit to the Deep Sea Palace, Spencer's workload had drastically increased. The work was so relentless that during the first week, he didn't sleep for a full 7 days. As a cultivator, he didn't struggle with staying awake, it was the taxing mental effort the work required that was challenging. What irked him more was how the overflow of work was starting to impinge on his personal life. He barely saw Arya during that week. Their only interactions were brief and businesslike, occurring when she visited his office to serve him a quick snack or a warm cup of tea. Even as his assistants packed up and headed home for the day, Spencer would remain behind, working late into the night under the dim glow of his office lamp. As if a blessing in disguise, within a week, the number of Spencer's assistants jumped from 3 to 30. The credit for this immense increase went to Alicia, Aditya's second fiancée, who had put in considerable effort to find 27 additional competent individuals to support Spencer and relieve him from his crippling workload. With this bolstered workforce, Spencer finally found himself with enough breathing space to enjoy a good night's sleep and carve out time for Arya. However, a new challenge lay on the horizon. Starting today, a 10-day public holiday commenced across the empire. As a result, half of Spencer's assistants had already packed up for a well-deserved break. This translated into a pile of pending tasks for Spencer as they needed to finish their work meant for the upcoming 10 days in advance. Spencer was well aware that once the holidays ended, an avalanche of work would come crashing down. But in his eyes, it was a price worth paying for the precious time he could spend with Arya. Driven by this desire, he doubled down on his efforts to clear his table as swiftly as possible. As the Prime Minister, Spencer bore the responsibility of supervising various facets of the empire's operation. Apart from this, he was involved in the process of evaluating and considering proposals for new policies, laws, and regulations that could impact the empire and its denizens. Additionally, he had to respond to an endless stream of letters, messages, and requests pouring in from citizens, nobles, and foreign dignitaries. The breadth of his responsibilities was staggering, but he navigated through them with steadfast determination, driven by the prospect of an upcoming breather and some cherished time with his beloved Arya. Once Spencer had attended to his own looming pile of responsibilities, he found his path leading to Aditya's office, nestled conveniently in the adjacent room. Aditya was an emperor who cherished his solitude, preferring to work in an isolated space away from the bustle of others. Over the past couple of months and an additional 15 days, the emperor was a paragon of diligence, toiling from the crack of dawn till the cloak of night wrapped the world in its embrace. Knock. Knock. Your Majesty, may I enter? Spencer's respectful voice echoed through the heavy wooden door. Come in, Spencer. The invitation was immediate, echoing softly from the room within. Pushing open the imposing door, Spencer was greeted by the sight of Aditya, seated with an air of regal ease on a plush chair before a large rectangular table. The table was a landscape of diverse documents and an assortment of books, a testament to the emperor's wide range of responsibilities and interests. Tucked away in a cozy corner of the room, next to a window that offered a calming view of the world outside, lay an artist's haven, pots of ink, an assortment of brushes, and a pile of large, pristine white papers. Aditya often took advantage of his fleeting moments of leisure, attempting to craft new rune spells, nurturing his artistic side alongside his administrative duties. Aditya, with his vibrant blue hair cascading to his shoulders and piercing blue eyes, was absorbed in scrutinizing a document. The dim light from the overhead chandelier danced in his hair, casting an ethereal glow around him. Aditya's attire was a reflection of his need for comfort during his long hours of work. He wore a simple, loose-fitting white shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the toned forearms of a ruler who was no stranger to physical exertion. His dark trousers were casual, yet well-tailored, completing his relaxed yet dignified look. The simplicity of his ensemble was a far cry from the extravagant robes often associated with royalty, but it suited Aditya, a monarch who embraced practicality over ostentation. "Sit down, Spencer," Aditya encouraged, indicating a comfortable chair opposite him. Although they were now in an official setting, there was no need for the stiffness of formalities. Outside their professional roles, Aditya and Spencer enjoyed a warm friendship. They often engaged in deep conversations about their lives, their philosophies, their sources of inspiration, and the things and people they cherished and wished to protect. Spencer acknowledged the invitation with a nod, lowering himself into the plush seat across from Aditya. He carefully placed the stack of parchment he carried onto the table, taking the top document and sliding it across the polished surface towards the Emperor. "The expansion project for Azure City is nearing its completion," he began, pointing out details in the document. "The newly erected walls have surpassed the old ones in terms of strength and durability." "That's encouraging news," Aditya's smile conveyed his satisfaction as he read through Spencer's succinct report. Around 6 weeks ago, it was resolved that the boundaries of Azure City, the capital of the Eastern Empire, needed to be stretched outwards. The Eastern Empire boasted the title of being the largest on the planet, an accolade earned not just due to its vast territory, but also its ability to attract a diverse population from across the continent. The Azure City, being the Empire's heart, was a magnet for settlers seeking a safe and prosperous life. The Empire offered a refuge to individuals and families looking for stability and growth, providing an unparalleled environment for entrepreneurship. This was largely due to the favorable and inclusive policies laid out by the Empire's governance, which encouraged innovation and hard work. Living in Azure City came with myriad benefits. The city's excellent transportation network facilitated easy movement around its expansive territory, a testament to the Empire's remarkable infrastructure. Moreover, the city prided itself on maintaining a zero-crime rate, an achievement that spoke volumes about the effective law enforcement and the harmonious cohabitation of its residents. The safety and security promised by the city were complemented by the transparency and integrity of its governance, which ensured a corruption-free environment. Moreover, the legal framework was robust yet flexible, striking the perfect balance between law and liberty. This appealing amalgamation of safety, prosperity, and freedom was what made Azure City the desired destination for people far and wide. "Your Majesty, with the population surge, we need to think about expanding our educational infrastructure," Spencer broached the topic, his brow furrowing slightly with the weight of the matter. "The royal school you initiated in Azure City is receiving an influx of students from not just within our empire, but from the surrounding ones as well. Every noble family is eager to enroll their children in our esteemed institution." It was a testament to the high standard of education the Eastern Empire provided. The academic quality of the Empire's schools, especially the royal school, far exceeded those in other territories. It was more than just education, though. Sending their children to study in Azure City had its own strategic advantages for the noble families. Nobility from far and wide saw this as an opportunity to foster connections with other influential families, in a way sowing the seeds of alliances and mutually beneficial relations for the future. After all, these young students of today would become the decision-makers and leaders of tomorrow. By sending their children to the same school, they could weave a network of connections that could potentially extend their family's influence and opportunities. Moreover, the allure of having their children befriend the emperor's adopted siblings, who were also students at the royal school, was a significant draw. These bonds formed in the early years could lead to substantial political and social advantages in the future. Being in the emperor's good graces, or even being within his circle, was an opportunity no noble family wanted to miss. "Indeed, the growth and reputation of our royal school is something to be proud of," Spencer continued, a smile pulling at his lips, "but it also brings with it the responsibility to accommodate this increasing demand. We need to think about establishing more such institutions, providing equal opportunities for all." Aditya leaned back in his chair, loosening his hold on the document. "We can revisit the expansion of educational facilities after the new year. There's plenty of time to deliberate and plan," he agreed with Spencer, who gave a nod of assent. A rush to decision-making, especially in matters as substantial as this, could lead to missteps, and they had sufficient time to iron out a well-thought-out strategy. Spencer, appreciating the emperor's considered approach, moved on to the next matter of concern. He handed over another document, this one noticeably thinner yet carrying a graver tone. "This involves a smuggling incident, Your Majesty. A group has been apprehended for smuggling mana stones into our southern territories. Their origins trace back to the Northern Frost Dragon Empire." Aditya sighed audibly as he skimmed through the document. His hand moved up to massage his temples, the stress of the issue evident in his expression. The political instability and ongoing civil war in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, their neighbors to the south, had started to seep into the tranquility of the Eastern Empire. It was an intricate matter that he had been trying to manage amidst his many responsibilities, and it had been giving him constant headaches. The conflict and power struggles in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire were causing ripple effects that were beginning to disturb their southern territories. Smuggling, illegal trade, and refuge crises were becoming increasingly common. Additionally, the uncertainty and tension were discouraging for trade relations and commerce, which were essential for the prosperity and development of the territories. Aditya had already expressed his silent support for the 7th prince in the neighboring empire, providing him with his own men and resources to quell the unrest. But progress was slow, and the 7th prince was taking longer than Aditya had anticipated to regain control and restore peace. The turmoil in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire needed to be addressed soon, or it threatened to escalate into a larger regional issue. Really thank you very much to all those who send support with valuable. I've decided, once the New Year holidays are over, I'll personally handle this issue. We need to put an end to this civil war once and for all. Aditya's tone was resolute, his fingers kneading his forehead as he weighed the implications of the persistent conflict. He lifted his gaze to meet Spencer's. What's next on the agenda? The strain in his eyes betrayed his mental fatigue. His physical strength, bolstered by his cultivation, might withstand the demands of his role, but his mind was yearning for a reprieve. His thoughts trailed away from the bureaucratic concerns momentarily, finding solace in the memory of Sasha. It's been more than 2.5 months since I've seen her, Aditya inwardly sighed. She was set to be his 5th fiancée, a woman whose company he truly enjoyed. Yet, the pressing duties of his office had held him back, keeping him away from her for an extended period. He couldn't help but wonder if she held any resentment towards him for not keeping his promise. After all, he had assured her of his frequent visits, but his actions had fallen far short of his words. His heart clenched slightly at the thought, a wave of regret washing over him. Yet, he knew his responsibilities to his empire couldn't be shirked. It was a delicate balance he constantly found himself trying to maintain. The construction of the new ports in our northwestern territory is progressing smoothly, Spencer reported, scanning through the document in his hand. Ever since your swift handling of the rebellion in that region, there have been no hurdles in the construction process. If things continue at this pace, all 5 ports should be up and running in another 2 weeks or so. Good to hear, Aditya responded, his gaze lingering on the sprawling view outside the window. His mind seemed to drift away for a moment, lost in thought. What about the recruitment of new troops? How's that coming along? His voice was low, hinting at the gravity of the subject. Spencer straightened in his chair before replying, we've set up soldier recruitment centers in all the major cities. Local lords have been really supportive, speeding up the whole process. If things continue this way, the military strength of the Eastern Empire could potentially double in a few months' time. The news seemed to relieve Aditya as he gave a satisfied nod. He was acutely aware that the current number of soldiers under his command was inadequate to effectively maintain control over the vast territories of his empire. There were regions within his domain that were significantly lacking in military presence. In the absence of soldiers to uphold law and order, the crime rates could potentially surge, making the lives of the common people increasingly difficult. This pressing issue weighed heavily on Aditya's mind, making the expansion of his military forces a matter of utmost priority. Aditya's inquiry then shifted to a close ally of the empire. What's the current status in the Hephaestus kingdom? The kingdom's plight had been on Aditya's mind for a while, as he had pledged support to the Hephaestus king to assist in rebuilding his troubled kingdom. Spencer paused, scanning through his files before pulling out a document. As per your directive, Victoria has already headed there with a 500,000-strong force led by Generals Scott and Josh. Our soldiers are collaborating closely with the troops from the Echo Dominion Empire to root out local gangs, eradicate criminal activity, and reinstate law and order, he reported. The Echo Dominion Empire, a third significant ally of the Eastern Empire, had also thrown their support behind the troubled Hephaestus kingdom. This collective effort was slowly but surely helping to restore stability in the kingdom. Spencer continued, the king of Hephaestus had been struggling to wield power effectively, and his kingdom had become a hotbed for corruption and illegal activities of all sorts. He paused to take a breath before adding, besides this, we have also extended financial aid amounting to millions of gold coins to assist with the economic rebuilding of the Hephaestus kingdom. The aid had become a beacon of hope for the beleaguered kingdom. As the reports of progress continued to pour in, both Aditya and Spencer felt a sense of satisfaction. Another matter on the table, Spencer said, flipping to a new page in his dossier, is related to our agricultural development. The recent insect infestation in the northern wheat fields has caused significant crop damage. We're going to have a shortfall in grain supplies this year. Aditya nodded thoughtfully. The northern agricultural regions were vital for the empire's food security. We need to investigate the source of this infestation and see how we can prevent this in the future. Meanwhile, do we have enough reserve to offset the deficit? Yes, Your Majesty, we have sufficient reserves for this year, but it's the next year we should worry about if the problem persists, Spencer replied. There are also calls for improving irrigation and implementing more sustainable farming practices to increase yields. Moving to another topic, Spencer continued, in terms of infrastructure, our rapid urbanization is causing growing pains in some cities. Traffic congestion, housing shortages, and inadequate public services have become prominent issues. Azure City, despite its attractions, is seeing increasing social tension due to the influx of people and the pressure on resources. Aditya sighed, rubbing his forehead again. It seems we have our work cut out for us. We need to balance our rapid growth with sustainable planning. Perhaps we can invite experts in urban planning and development to help us strategize. The progress of the military base construction in the southern territories of our empire, how is it faring? Aditya asked, the hint of a frown knitting his brows together. The building of these military bases was a strategic move on his part. Their purpose was twofold, to enhance the empire's security, safeguarding against potential foreign invasions, and to provide a readiness to retaliate swiftly should any foreign entity have the audacity to violate their territories. Spencer, reading the seriousness in Aditya's tone, promptly responded, Your Majesty, the construction projects are advancing as planned, without any significant hitches. He paused, gathering his thoughts before continuing, in terms of our interactions with local residents, we have taken extensive measures to ensure their welfare. We relocated them, providing them with new lands in areas unaffected by construction, along with compensation to help them establish their lives anew. This approach has ensured a minimum of disruption for our own citizens. He took a moment before adding, however, it appears our activity has not been well received by everyone. There have been grumblings from the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. It seems they are displeased by the idea of our military bases sprouting along their borders. Aditya listened attentively, the frown deepening on his face. Finally, he let out a weary sigh. I suppose their displeasure was inevitable. However, this is a necessary measure. It's not meant to provoke but to protect our empire and its citizens. It's all about ensuring our security. His voice was firm, his decision unshakable. The safety of his empire and its people was his primary concern, and he wouldn't compromise on it. The construction of the bases was critical to bolstering their defense and readiness, even if it displeased their neighbors. After navigating through a maze of complex issues, the meeting finally came to an end. Aditya leaned back in his chair and massaged his temples, then looked up at Spencer with a soft smile. That's all for today, Spencer, he said, his voice carrying a genuine note of gratitude. You've done an exceptional job, as always. I truly appreciate your tireless dedication and support. Spencer responded in his customary formal tone, bowing his head slightly in respect. Thank you, Your Majesty. It's an honor to serve the Empire. His own fatigue was evident, but a spark of satisfaction flickered in his eyes. As he left Aditya's office, Spencer felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He walked back to his office, a hint of spring in his steps. As he entered, the room was filled with the palpable tension of his assistants, still immersed in their tasks, not knowing that the day's work had finally come to an end. With a broad grin adorning his face, Spencer announced, "Everyone, we're done for the day." A moment of stunned silence followed his proclamation before the room erupted into cheers of relief and happiness. Assistants exchanged wide-eyed looks of disbelief before laughter and conversation filled the room, replacing the earlier silence. One could see the relief wash over the faces of the assistants as they realized they were finally free to enjoy their holidays. The room was soon buzzing with excited chatter about vacation plans and shared laughter over shared hardships. As for Spencer, his mind was already elsewhere, a soft smile tugging at his lips as he thought of Arya. Finally, he would be able to spend time with her without any interruptions or distractions. It was the simple thought of being with her, enjoying their shared moments, that made all the hard work worthwhile. The holiday mood was contagious, the office filled with an atmosphere of jubilant relief and shared happiness, marking the end of a hard day's work and the start of a much-needed break.